Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, or three best podcasts around. So why don't you grab yourself an ice cold one and a pull of sausage that you picked up from the Jules, park a keister in the front room, and listen to Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. And we actually recorded some really good stuff about the Bulls' upcoming season and a wrap-up of Cubs and White Sox end of their season, and had a little bit about the Blackhawks that we were going to roll all up into this episode. But I was honestly, truly, and wholeheartedly believing that the Bears were going to win this one. So I decided that since this was a loss and it was a lot to talk about, that I'm going to put up another episode tomorrow or Tuesday morning. So Tuesday morning there's going to be another episode. I know I promised that there would be more about the Bulls and the White Sox, Cubs, and Blackhawks, and there's going to be. I promise. It's all recorded. We're just going to put it in another episode, so we kind of don't tarnish that stuff, and all that goodness can be on its own. So this episode is going to be solely focused to the Chicago Bears and the rough loss that they took today at home against the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to have Lester Wiltfong from the Windy City Gridiron on the show. First, I want to take a quick second to mention our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Just a quick drive west, the Ice Hogs are fun for the whole family. You'll get to see the rising and future stars of the Chicago Blackhawks, fun and fast-paced hockey action, and the antics of Hammy the mascot. All of this with tickets starting at just $8. You don't want to miss out with the next home game, Saturday, October 25th against the Chicago Wolves. Head on over to icehogs.com for tickets and tell them that Swerski Sports sent you. So let's head over to right into the Bears action. And welcome to the show, Lester Wiltfong from Windy City Gridiron. Make sure you check out that site. There's so much good stuff there. I go there all the time, and Lester writes some really thought-provoking articles about the Chicago Bears that you'll really want to check out. So make sure you guys check that out.
Thanks.
So for me, I guess the first thing I have to say about this game is it was kind of the epitome of everything wrong with this season so far.
Yeah, just the inconsistency is just it rears its ugly head again, and they could get nothing sustained in offense. The defense, you had a few flashes here and there, but nothing consistent. It's just the Bears are 3-4, and they're just not a good team right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ever escape your record. You are what your record says you are, and that's really what the Bears are.
Yeah, going over the numbers, and I just trying to find something in the stats to show how it was bad, and this is the season low. They were held for first downs. They only had 14 first downs in the day, and there were just no sustained drives all day. It was just they could get nothing going, and it makes no sense because the Dolphins, they have some talent on defense, but this is a Bears offense. There's a lot of money that's put into the offense, and these guys have talent all over the place, and there's no excuse why these guys are having such a hard time moving the ball. It's just the play calling was suspect in the first half, and it just they never got into a rhythm, and it just hurt the team overall.
Yeah, I agree fully. And it seems that this team lives and dies by having Matt Forte and Brandon Marshall be the cogs that drive this offense. And it's just a couple days short of Jay Cutler saying, well, we just always take what the defense gives us. And here he is trying to force a bunch of passes to Brandon Marshall. Granted that the Bears wide receivers are much bigger and more physical, or bigger and much more physically imposing than the cornerbacks for the Dolphins, is if you've ever watched Cortland Finnegan play, he's a really physical cornerback, and he doesn't care about the size, and he showed that today.
That's how it is with the other side with Grimes. They're both physical players, and they have no problem mixing it up. And I just didn't like some of the play calling. I know they took a few shots downfield, but they never got the Dolphins in a one-on-one matchup. There was a couple shots to Marshall where it was a two-on-one, a couple shots to Marshall and Jeffrey. Both had a safety over the top, so there was no true one-on-one shot where you're just gonna just put it up there for your guy to get it. And the same with Bennett. He's another real big target. There wasn't enough scheming to where they would get these guys in one-on-one matchups to where it could really be beneficial for them. And it's with Matt Forte. It's the Matt Forte show, but you have to do something else. He's supposed to be your fourth option in the passing game, and he's getting all the receptions.
Yeah, I mean, this was a total game where I felt that you really could have exploited the matchup with Martellus Bennett and rode him hard, because this is a fairly talented Dolphins defense, and they were sitting on all the short routes that the Bears were running and forcing them into third downs, and going deep is they had good coverage going deep. So I felt like the best option would have been those moderate routes with the tight end where he's not going to be, he's either too big for the safety or he's gone too deep to be for the linebacker to keep up, because it's not a talented linebacking core for the Dolphins. It's talented cornerbacks and defensive line.
Yeah, I'm usually one of the guys that are mostly, I'm pro the coaches. It's all about the players making plays, but just the game plan seemed really weird to me. With a team that's really good at pass rushing, there was really only a couple screens, I think, to Forte. One of them was Jay Cutler threw in the dirt. There might have another one mixed in there, but there wasn't enough screens to him. If you're going to get him involved in the offense, you have a Cameron Wake coming in from the right side, so you do some screens to that side. You want to he has to slow his rush up somehow, and if they're not going to chip, put some screens over there. And there was nothing over there on that side to help out Mills. He was left on an island a lot. I thought he played a little better game than, obviously, he gave some of the sacks, some of the pressures, but there are a few instances where I thought he really moved his feet well. I mean, he did a good job, but he's still the weak link. They got to do something. They got to figure something out from a scheme-wise to help this team out. And it's sad to say, with so much talent, you have to figure out how to scheme things around it. You should be able to just go out there and play, but so far through 7 games, it's rough for Mark Trestman. His system is not coming through in year 2.
Yeah, I mean, the big weak link today wasn't solely Jordan Mills. It was the whole offensive line. They got manhandled, and then when it really came down to having to, crunch time, is they got manhandled even more. They got a few holes in there, but for running lanes, and Matt Forte took advantage of those. But they were, I see those more as running past bull rushers rather than actually establishing a dominant run offense. It looks a lot different than watching the Dallas Cowboys and Murray running the ball with the open lanes. It was guys coming in for a pass rush and just pushing them, out of using their own momentum to push them out of the way, and Forte taking advantage. The offensive line was a little bit brutal today.
Yeah, and on that same point, we talked about the screens, and there were, I don't think there was any draw plays. If you got a team that really is trying to get upfield in the pass rush, you got to get some draws in there, and there wasn't enough of that stuff. You got to do some stuff with misdirection, and it wasn't, that was missing from the game plan. And I don't know if the Bears just looked at the Dolphins as an easy win, or what they did, but this is the first time I can remember really putting all the onus on the coaching and the preparation. I just didn't see it today.
I'm not even going to put the onus on the coaching staff. I'm going to put it solely on Mark Trestman, because I don't think the Bears defense played a terrible game today. I think they got put in some tough situations with, being left on the field a long time, short fields, and some other things. They played, other than not being able to get the full pass rush, pressure on Ryan Marino, it was they played fairly well.
it was a weird game. They had some pressure. I mean, the first half they had 4 sacks, but it was coming in spurts, and it wasn't enough to get Ryan Tannehill off his spot. He started the game with his first 14-15 pass he completed. Just, this is not an upper echelon quarterback, but the Bears made him look that way. And then with the read option, the Bears still can't. They're still struggling with that aspect of it. And I was hoping with his ankle being banged up a little bit that the Dolphins wouldn't do it. But I guess his ankle was fine because he was all over the field.
Yeah, the read option is just killing the Bears, and it's if you watch the defensive ends, no matter which side they do it, they're getting the defensive end biting on it and really coming in hard, and there they go on the outside, and it's so painful to watch because I get it if it happens in one game, you're not ready for it, but the thing is the first time they saw it was, really hammered at week 2 with Kaepernick, and it's coming, and you've seen it coming so often that how did you not figure out what you need to do or to be ready for it? And it's one thing if it happens and you get burned one time and like, all right, I wasn't ready for it. They totally threw me off guard. But they run it 3 times in a row and you still can't stop it. Then it's you that's doing something wrong.
It looks like the way the Bears are defending it is the defensive end is always going to be the guy crashing in, and if that's the case, there's a guy coming over the top or a guy coming from the outside, a linebacker or a safety. It's their responsibility to take the quarterback, and if that's the way they're going to play it, that's fine. But the second guy in is not, he's not taking a quarterback. He's either getting blocked, and I thought the Dolphins did a great job. They were bringing a tight end over as kind of he was actually a lead blocker on those read option plays. It's just a nice little wrinkle they do. And he was just taking that guy that was responsible for the quarterback, and they're pushing him out of the way. And if that's the case, then you got to have a guy coming over with that tight end. If he's coming across the line, you got to have a guy following him. You have to follow your keys on defense, and if that's happening, you have to be able to account for it. And it was just killing the Bears today.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that just really is suffering from not having an identity. They don't have an identity on any phase of the ball. On special teams, at least they had Devin Hester before, who was their identity. He was the threat. He could do something. They don't have a standout special teams guy to make tackles. They don't have a standout guy to return kicks or punts. On defense, what kind of defense are they? Like, what is their, who do they take their lead from? On offense, they haven't done anything to just establish what their identity is. It seems like they just play, up or down to the team that they're playing, and they have no identity.
I think they want to be a fast-paced, a high-scoring team that's, they're pass first, but they have the money into the receiver and the quarterback and the tight end. They paid for a left tackle. It's just not clicking. And if I know a lot of fans, they really want the Bears to be the old school, 3 yards and the Colorado does team, because I follow a lot of guys on Twitter and the social media and even on the radio shows, people are calling in and asking for the Bears to be able to just, when it's like 4th and 2, pound it up there. But that's just not how this team is built. They're trying to be a finesse team, and that kind of it turns people's stomachs in Chicago because that's not what you want to hear. But they're trying to be that. But if you're not scoring points, it's just like you said, the identity they're trying to have, they can't make it for whatever reason. They looked good last year, one of the best offenses in the game. This year, it's just sad.
Yeah, I think this year they're trying to be the smartest guy in the room, and it's just not clicking. I believe it's a lot to do with 2 key factors. One is it's been poor play calling, and 2, it's been a lack of discipline. This team, there's a lot of penalties and a lot of miscommunication between the quarterback and the receivers. We see that game in, game out. That's been a consistent with every single game. Is even games that they win, you see bad miscommunication with their players, and that's every team's going to have miscommunication, but it seems that there's a whole lot of miscommunication with these receivers, and not running correct routes, or Jay Cutler's thinking they're going to do something that's different than that they actually do. And it's that on a West Coast type offense, that's really dangerous because you're throwing it to your quick ins, quick outs, and you're not waiting until the guy's wide open to throw it. So if you run the wrong route, you're going to wind up with these bad passes that get intercepted, and then you have this rabid fan base that's just calling for Cutler's head. Sometimes it's his fault, sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, it's inexcusable. In the second year of the offense, these little things shouldn't happen. I'm sure in this year they added some stuff to the playbook. They may have given the receivers and quarterbacks a few more options than they had last year. Whatever the reason is, it's not working. I don't know if you gotta go back to some of the stuff you did last year. If you go back and take a look at the tape, it will work last year for you. But whatever they're trying to do this year with some of the wrinkles and some of the option routes, it's not working because Cutler I think has 7 picks now. The one today I think was on him, but a couple of other ones he threw early in the year I think were on the receiver just doing something they shouldn't have been doing, and it's just it's mind-boggling how an offense can go from what it was last year, bring back everyone intact. You think with another year in the system they would get better. They're regressing.
I had Martellus Bennett on the show before the season started, and I was asking him about, being in the system for a second year, and did Mark Trestman, is he opening up new plays and more parts of the playbook because they had a year to digest things and to really start to open things up? And his answer really ate at me because I felt he was being very arrogant about it. And he was like, we're all smart people. We can figure out the playbook. He opened it all up last year. And, it's kind of funny because he was saying that to me, but then that's not what's materializing on the field this year. Is there's clearly new plays that they're doing, and they're running certain plays that they ran a lot last year, less this year, and it seems that not everybody's on the same page, which means that people are clearly not understanding the whole playbook and what's expected of them.
I mean, the playbook's the playbook. It's not going to change much, but as far as the game plan, the stuff you're going to put in for this particular week, for this particular defense you're facing, there's a disconnect there. I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things that the players aren't going to admit it, the coaches aren't going to admit it, but there's something there, and someone has to be held accountable. And if the Bears, they go to New England next week. This team could be, they could be out of it. The Packers look really good again this week, and the Bears are just falling further and further behind. The Lions, they're okay, and they're ahead of the Bears still. So, what are you going to do if you're still putting along and you're sitting at 3-6, 3-7? The season is going to be done, and there's not a lot of time to get things turned around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the playbook. You're right. The playbook is the playbook, but at some point is like a lot of teams do when they have a new quarterback coming in, a backup quarterback, is you shrink the playbook a little bit.
Yeah.
The plays are the plays. Is go back to the basics. Go back. You have 2 really talented wide receivers. You have a talented tight end, a talented running back, a reasonably good offense, and a reasonably good quarterback. So you have all the pieces in place to be able to. So go back to the basics where that got you to where you were last year, and then just run those plays, execute them to the best of their ability, and just be better than the guy across from you.
Agreed. It's all about, in football you have to win your one-on-one battle, and too often the Bears are losing it this year, and it's just on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, and something's got to change. The players aren't going anywhere, so it's up to the coaches to figure out some different schemes and different plan of attack here to get things going, because if they don't, it's going to be over.
Yeah, I mean, if they're being physical and doubling up Brandon Marshall, is stop forcing the ball to Brandon Marshall. You've got a really talented Alshon Jeffrey on the other side that's a really big matchup nightmare for a lot of cornerbacks. Is either utilize his ability to go deep or run a lot of plays that he can use his size to shield it. Utilize your tight end. Line up 2 running backs. They've shown that they're very comfortable having carry, run the ball, is line up Matt Forte as in the slot. I mean, do some other things with guys you trust to create matchup problems. That's the thing with you're spending all this money on these guys with talent, and utilize them to create matchup nightmares.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any creativity. I don't think anyone is. The only thing I've noticed the last few weeks is that there's been a few more crossing routes, over the middle, which is good because they're getting a lot of stuff that's too deep coverage, so you got to do some stuff over the middle. But the long crossing routes, they take a long time to develop sometimes, and when your offensive line was struggling the last couple of weeks and struggled again today, I think they got to do some more quick hitters over the middle. I haven't seen a lot of slants, the last couple of weeks. I don't know if they just stopped doing it, if it's not in the game plan, but you got these two big receivers. You got Bennett. He can go out wide and do a slant for you. You got to take advantage of what you got, and you got size. You got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and one thing that they really haven't done since Mark Trestman took the reins of this offense is they don't roll Jay Cutler out and planned rolls as very much, and he, that's big for him. Is he throws very well for a quarterback rolling out of the pocket, and why not have more design rollouts if you're having trouble? If you're having trouble with an edge rusher, is roll the play away from him, make him run that much further, and get your quarterback running and the whole offense moving that direction.
Yeah, that's been a problem ever since he came over from Denver. Is when he was in Denver, he was a big rollout guy, and Mike Shanahan runs his version of the West Coast offense a little differently. A lot of stuff with the zone reads the zone blocking scheme is they're getting everyone flowing one way, and then the quarterback has the fake and he rolls back away from it on a lot of boots. And through Ron Turner, through Martz, through Tice, and then Trestman, none of them have really decided to put that aspect of what he did good then in. So at this point, I'm wondering, is that something with Jay Cutler? Maybe he didn't like doing it back then. I mean, what are the reasons would there be when he had success in Denver running that type of stuff? Why is he not running it all here? Maybe the common denominator is just Jay doesn't want to do it. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but there's got to be a reason.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It could be very well that Jay Cutler says, listen, I don't want to roll out of the pocket, because it's pretty clear that when he has running lanes, he doesn't want to run for those first downs anymore. Maybe he just doesn't want to roll out at all, just be pure pocket passer. That could be it. It could be that it just doesn't fit in well into Trestman's system. But whatever that is they've got to do something to throw the opposing pass rush off, whether it be the quick slants or putting an extra help chip or an offensive lineman or a tight end over to help on the far side, or screen passes. But whatever it is, they've got to start mixing it up, and because they've got a tough game next week.
Yeah, there's been no sense of urgency. Today, obviously, they just looked real listless all day. There hasn't really been a sense of urgency on the season. But the way the locker room exploded afterwards, all the beat guys saying that there was a lot of anger and just really vulgar stuff coming out of the locker room. If this is the week, this has got to be the week they got to put it together, because if they lose again after having the big blow up locker room meeting, the season could be over.
Yeah, because if they don't win next week, I really look for this team to quit on Coach Trestman.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a possibility. I mean, he's a lot of stuff on social media is how Trestman is kind of soft, and he's more of a thinking man's coach, and everyone coaches differently. There's been plenty of coaches through the years that have won with that style, but the thing is, if you don't win with that style, it's over. The same with the other way. If you're a really emotional head coach like Mike Singletary, for example, with the 49ers. He wasn't winning with his style, and the team kind of was just whatever. And then when Harbaugh came in, it worked. You got to find the right fit with the head coach, the players, the personality's got to mesh. But winning will cure everything. And if he's going to lose again next week, that's going to be 2 in a row, 3-6. It's just, or 3-4, 3-5, and if the Packers keep winning, it's done.
Yeah, and it's just like you said, it's. It's not the style of the coaching. It's winning. You can put up with most anything when you're winning. Is look at drawing a blank on his name, the head coach of the Giants, and they were ready to run him out of town, and Tiki Barber, Coughlin, and Tiki Barber had just left and was saying how that he was too mean to be a coach in the NFL in this modern era, and nobody wanted to play for him, and players quit. And then he goes back in the next year and wins the Super Bowl, and suddenly he gets an extension, and players love him. It's not the style; it's whether you win or lose.
Exactly. I think about Don Shula, Tom Landry. These are guys that are they're more mild mannered. Lovie Smith, for the Bears, he was a mild mannered kind of coach, and the Bears, they won some games with him, went to the playoffs a few years, they got to a Super Bowl. So, it's all about winning. And if Trestman gets his schemes together and they're putting up points, there'll be no more of this talk about how the team is soft and how the team is just, they have no killer instinct because they're scoring points. If he can't do that, that's what's going to get him driven out of Chicago. It's not the fact that he's perceived as he's too cerebral.
Yeah, and while we have it on the subject, let's talk about the locker room incident. Things I was hearing were, players yelling at each other, and you had Kyle Long attacking the fans, and Brandon Marshall saying 400 times that this is unacceptable. I think it was actually 17 times. Is that the number?
Yeah, I think it was actually 17. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have everyone just lashing out, and you could see. I was watching on CBS. They had the players as they were exiting and talking to that everyone. Lamar Houston seemed a little bit like laughing it off, saying, "Listen, we played hard. We just didn't get it done." But then you had Willie Young, who looked like he was ready to bite everybody's face off because he was so mad. And that means a lot coming from a guy who played on a team that didn't win a game.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some problems. Locker room has some issues. A leader has to step up, whether it's a Cutler or Forte. Someone in that locker room has to be a voice of reason. They have to get things settled down. And, it's through 2 years, there has never really been a big rift in the locker room like this. Even last year, the Bears were 8-8. You think that at some point there could have been something. This is the first really big test of Mark Trestman and his regime on the players kind of having a little mini revolt. I'm not saying they're trying to revolt against what's happening, but there's obviously a lot of frustration going on, and it's interesting to see how Trestman and his staff will handle it this week, along with some of the team leaders on the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, when we had little bits of that during the Lovie era, but it was always the defense was upset with the offense, and it was usually Brian Urlacher leading the charge. But the way it was, I wasn't ever behind the scenes, but the way they seemed to handle it is the defense went out there and rallied behind each other, and they went out and played a good game and played better, and they looked at it as a challenge, like, let's win this game by ourselves and carry the offense. I just worry that neither side is good enough to be able to do that, and the rift is going to continue.
If the offense comes out next week and they find a way to score, and then the Bears beat the Patriots, everything this week will be forgotten. It's just the way it is in the NFL. It's a week to week. I remember a couple weeks ago the Bears were 2-1. They just beat the Niners and the Jets on prime time consecutive weeks, and people were talking about the Bears are definitely a playoff lock. And it's so funny how things can change so quickly. And even though the Bears, obviously not where they want to be, it's still early in the season. There's still a chance. The Panthers lost, which is good for the Bears today. So it's all a matter of they got to get in a roll. If they can't get in a roll, then it could be, it could be slipping away from them. But we have to wait and see what happens next week. That could be the week that they turn it around after this big blow up today.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, I said if the defense can be middle of the pack, they are a playoff bound team. And right now the defense is middle of the pack, and it's the offense that's really struggling. So. And I feel like the offense has a much easier time to turn things around than the defense, because they have an offensive coach who in theory can really turn things on, and he showed it last year, and they've got a lot of talent on offense. So I think this is more of the offense needs to be able to sustain drives, which is easier said than done, and be able to put the pressure on. I mean, if you look at the Green Bay Packers, is they don't have the defense that everyone thinks they do. They have it. The numbers look much better for them because Aaron Rodgers helps lead that defense by putting up ungodly numbers and putting up tons of touchdowns. Is suddenly you have an offense on the other team that's really behind the eight ball, and they have to press and do things that are a little outside their comfort zone because they have to quickly try to match strikes with the Green Bay offense, and that lets the Green Bay defense kind of feast on that. I think the Bears offense, if they can start sustaining drives, either running the clock down or quick strikes, and be able to put those points on the board, they're gonna be able to put their defense in a much better position, keep them off the field longer and let them get rested, force the other teams to press it, because you're not going to be, if you're down 14, 17 points, you're going to be running a lot less plays that really hurt the Bears. You're going to be letting them pin their ears back and earn the pass rush.
Yeah, I think that's what the Bears wanted to do. I mean, they had to assume that their offense would take another step, and then they went on and they signed 3 guys that can get after the quarterback, and they put a lot of money into the defensive line. They put a couple draft picks into the defensive line. They brought back Ratliff for the defensive line. So I think that was the general thought was offense take that step. We'll fix our pass rush, and then we're going to be a playoff team. But it's just not coming together, and it's getting to the point where they gotta figure it out soon.
Yeah, and I mean everyone's looking at next week as a guaranteed loss, but regardless of the record, is if any year under Belichick that the Patriots have looked vulnerable, it's this year.
Yeah, it's funny that everyone thought that the Bears would lose to San Fran, and they didn't. Obviously, the game today, everyone was picking the Bears, and they blew that. Everyone assumed the Bills were going to get beat the week 1, and that didn't happen. So it seems like whatever the consensus is, the opposite happens, and if that's the case, that'd be fine. I mean, the Bears will pull it out next week, because I can't imagine anyone who's going to pick the Bears next week.
Oh, definitely not. Going into New England and beating them. But I honestly think that they've got the talent to do it, because that team is not the most talented team by any stretch. They've got problems on the offensive line with receivers. They've got a lot of issues, but they play very well as a team, and they just plug cogs into this well-oiled machine and keep running it. But as
I'm concerned with go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and so it's that talent-wise, you should be able to line up, if you're the Chicago Bears, line up and beat the New England Patriots. Now, it's the actual practice of getting on the field and doing it that's the question.
Yeah, my concern is with New England is they're discovering the tight ends again. Gronkowski looks like Gronkowski of old. They got Wright in there now as a number 2 tight end. They're getting them both the ball. But the good thing is the Bears won't have to deal with the read option this week with Tom Brady back there. So, there's some good, there's some bad, but who's going to cover Gronkowski? I don't see one linebacker on the Bears that could do it. Maybe if Briggs is back, he can get in there and give him a little something, because they're definitely missing his experience. I think his leadership's a little lacking on defense now. It's the team, they need that guy because they're not getting it. I don't see any linebackers on the Bears today, and even though they looked good last week, that was kind of like an anomaly. This week the linebackers look pretty bad, and they got to figure something out next week because Gronkowski's going to just tear him up if they can't cover him.
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest detriment to the Bears linebacking core was DJ Williams coming back. Maybe Shea McClellan too. Is DJ Williams just looks slow, and against the run he can come in and step up and make some pops, but he's a real liability in any situation with passing. I felt like Sharpton playing last week was a real boost to them. I don't think it was his play. I don't think he's the caliber. You're probably not going to win the Super Bowl with Sharpton as your starting linebacker, but he brought something new that the Bears have been missing, is that level of hitting and that speed at the linebacking spot that they haven't had in several years since Urlacher was still Pro Bowler.
Yeah, I want to see the snap count because I know Sharpton played quite a bit today. It looked like he was the guy that was coming into nickel, and they were bringing DJ off But then as the game went on, I seemed to notice DJ was in there also on some nickel packages. So I don't know if the Bears were just kind of looking for a group of linebackers that worked for them. I saw Green in there, nickel a little bit. I saw McClellan there on some third down plays. So I want to see the snap count, see how it all boiled out. But the fact that they let Sharpton get in there and play a little bit, at least that bodes well to know the coaches at least realize that he was a good player last week. Maybe they look at the tape today and they realize that they got to get him in there over Williams. I think they should. I think he's a better player. He's faster. His overall knowledge of the game may not be there, but I mean this is his 5th year in the NFL, so he should be up there with Williams. So they got to do something. And if it's Sharpton is they feel is a better player, he has to be on the field because Williams is not getting it done, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's not, and I thought he played when healthy, played well last year. And I thought he would be the same level of player going into this season, and he just really hasn't been. It's been a disappointment.
The biggest thing is when you watch the game last week, Sharpton really showed up. He really flashed when you watched it. Just the speed. There was no one like that. He was the fastest guy in the field. Even with Bostic. Bostic, when he's healthy, he brings that speed. Maybe that's what the defense is, a little bit of speed. But Briggs is a little step slower. He's getting by on Guile at this point in his career. Williams is. I personally think he's done. I don't see what he brings to the team right now. He's not really getting it done on defense. He doesn't do anything for special teams for you. So, if he's not starting, I think the Bears might want to think about just letting him go. But they got to do something. And defensively, offensively, right now there's just a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that Lance Briggs would bring some sort of cohesiveness or team leadership to it, but I really think that Lance Briggs, he's kind of a problem because he's part of the old guard. He's a lovey guy, and sure he's gonna play, but he's not gonna do anything to make Trestman look good or to be the veteran leader that they want him to be. So I don't see any way he plays on this team next year.
Yeah, I think Briggs is done. I think Tillman. I'd love to see Tillman back, but I think he's probably done too. One of the comment sections in our site, Winning City Gridiron, we had someone mentioned that having Briggs and Williams in there at the same time, it's okay to have one guy that's older and experienced and he's just getting by on his guile, but to have two guys that are slow and that way is not a good formula for success. So I think when Briggs comes back, I think you got to get Williams out there and get Daryl Sharpton, that middle linebacker.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Another guy who I can't wait for him to get back and, at least, if nothing else, get him back out in the field for special teams is Ahmad Dixon, because he was another guy who breathed some life in there with speed and vigor and his ability to just hit somebody. And I think that's really what they need on this defense is somebody to just say, listen, I don't care. I'm going to go out and hit everybody.
Yeah, they need some intimidation factor, and they seem to start getting that last week with all those backup linebackers. There was a few big hits from those guys. There was a big hit by Ryan Mundy last week, and but this week there was none of that. There was no more intimidation factor back there on defense. Part of that was the Finns were able to do whatever they wanted, so that kind of hurts when that's going on. But you need a guy. John Bostic has a reputation of being a hard hitter. Maybe they're missing his presence on the defense, and but we're here talking about Dixon and Bostic, guys that really, they're not expecting a lot of, and it's pretty telling, I think, about how the season's going when we're here talking about how badly they need these guys to come back to get the team that boost. Maybe the overall talent level is just not quite there yet from what when Phil Army took over a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have enough talent to do something. It just if the offense isn't going to be playing to where they need to be playing, then yeah, the defense is going to have to play over their heads. And they, even though they put money and stuff into the team, there's still a bunch of gaping holes in this roster. And and the Dolphins, what they did today was they weren't attacking in the air so much. I mean, they were utilizing their tight ends, they were using the run game, and they had a mobile quarterback and the read option, and they just abused the Bears marching down the field. And so
I think that they have to really focus on getting a stud linebacker, whether they got a guy in free agency or they go in the draft that way. But it's just sad to see a team with the history of good linebacker play. Just this year, there's just nothing there. And with McClellan, he's trying to make the switch. He's not that guy. Bostic can't stay on the field. He was a pretty high draft pick, but so far he hasn't been that guy. They need a guy that's going to come in there and be a presence in the middle of the field to kind of to shut down some of the crossing routes and shut down some of the tight ends over the middle that they're getting. And they need something right now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You add a middle linebacker like you don't even have to get a guy of like a Luke Kuechly level, but you get a guy that can run and hit and play some football, and you add him to this team, and you add a free safety that can really cover a lot of ground, and suddenly that brings you from a mediocre defense to a much above average defense.
Yeah, maybe Brock Vereen's the guy. I think it's way too early to tell on him, but I think regardless how they feel he does this year, I think they owe it to the defense to bring in another a pretty good draft pick at safety. They need to address it at some point with a high draft pick.
Yeah, because if you watch teams that had historically had a great free safety, is you watch the difference in play. You look at a guy like when the Eagles were so good, when they had Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb, is that for me what the guy that led that team was Brian Dawkins. He just took away all these deep plays. You had to move short chunk because anytime you went deep, he was either there going over the top to break up the pass, intercept the pass, or he was going to clean your clock. And Ronnie Lott and guys like that just took away so much of that field and made your cornerbacks look better. And the Bears have cornerbacks that are making the safeties look better than they really are. And so it's and then Lord knows how long Kyle Fuller is going to be out with his hip injury.
Yeah, that's a little sketchy when it's a hip, because that's a weird type of injury. It could be as bad as the Bo Jackson injury from years ago, or it could just be a little hip pointer. But until he gets a chance to get to see a doctor, it'll be hard to tell. But if he's down, boy, that's really going to hurt that defense.
Yeah, the bad news is that he didn't come back in, but the good news was you saw him on the bike, trying to ride the bike and do some other things on the sidelines that make you think that hopefully it was just painful and that's it. And because that Bo Jackson injury was brutal.
Yeah, it was a rough one. If it's a hip pointer, hip flexor, something with the muscle, it's a little different than if it's something with the actual joint. We'll have to see what happens, but he's a guy that even on the broadcast today they mentioned he's playing at a Pro Bowl level, and this from a rookie, so they really need that guy on there. And if it's not him, it's going to be Sheriff McManus coming in. And I thought he had a good preseason, but I don't want him being one of the starting corners.
Yeah, that's my point exactly. Is Sheriff McManus, he's the depth of your cornerback position. Okay, because I actually like Sheriff McManus. I think he plays hard. I think he's a good scheme guy, but when he has to step in and be your starting left corner, then your team has some problems.
Yeah, that's trouble.
Yeah. So, what do we take away from this game?
Oh, geez, that's I don't know. It's again, like we talked about at the open, it's inconsistency. The offense, the whole day they were inconsistent. They couldn't keep a drive going. They had their the fewest amount of first downs of any game this season. Defensively, yeah, they had 4 sacks, but they still were giving Tannehill way too much time. So another inconsistency, and we've seen flashes this year of the offense and the defense both playing at a high level. They just can't sustain it. So what's in there. It's in their DNA somewhere that they could be good, but they just can't. They can't get it, and they can't keep it going. So it's a Jekyll and Hyde team for another week.
And the funny part is as bad as they played today, and how well the Dolphins did play, is if Martellus Bennett catches that ball that goes right between his hands in the end zone at the end of the fourth quarter, suddenly we're a 1-score game. You onside kick it, and you have the chance to win this ball game. I know ifs and buts are candy and nuts. It's Christmas every day, but the touchdown was at least right through Martellus Bennett's hands. He catches that 8 out of 10 times. So,
Yeah.
and suddenly then it becomes a one-score game.
Yeah, well, even in the first half, I mean, the Bears were. I thought they were dominated the whole first half. Then they come on the second half, they score on the first drive, and all of a sudden it's 14-7. You're like, okay, the Bears are back in it. And as bad as they looked, they were just that quickly back in it. And obviously they couldn't keep it going. The Dolphins came back down and got another touchdown. They answered, but it's in them. It's in them to be good. But do they have the right coaching and the right play caller in place? I hope they do. Because I think we're stuck with him for at least another year after this. I don't think they're going to get rid of him at all. So you got to hope they turn it around.
That, or they bring in Rex Ryan to be coach of the defense next year.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. I kind of gave Mel Tucker a pass last year because it's hard to judge him with so many injuries. I mean, it wasn't like he lost a couple key pieces. He lost his defensive line except for Peppers. He had to have a guy playing out of position. So I kind of looked at his body work last year as kind of a pass. This year, it's kind of funny because the games the Bears have won, everyone said, oh, Tucker did a good job. I thought Tucker had a really good game last week, and this week, he was dialing up some pressure here and there with Sharpton. I noticed him looking quite a bit. He wasn't able to get home. In the second half, they didn't get any sacks. So, is it his schemes again, or is it just the players not executing? At some point, there's going to be a fall guy, and if the players aren't getting it done on the field, it's going to be Mel Tucker that takes the fall. And if they bring in a Ryan, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. Honestly, at first I heard of rumblings about it. I believe one of the radio talk shows had mentioned something that they got some inside report that Rex Ryan was definitely going to be let go, and that he would probably have to accept a defensive coordinator spot, and that started churning. What if? And I think that actually would be something good for the Bears, is because Mark Trestman is very soft-spoken and very cerebral and very new age and touchy-feely, and I think it on offense his players buy into it, but on defense they're not buying in. And if you have a guy that's smash mouth and doesn't care, and he's going to be loud and boisterous and in everyone's face and tell it like it is, I think that works. That sort of mismatch between Trestman and Ryan, it could create a Ditka Ryan type situation where this is our side, that's your side. We're going to take care of our end, you take care of your end, and maybe that's what they need, that kind of boost.
A lot of teams have done that. Built that way. They have one of the head coach is a certain demeanor, and the other guys are another demeanor. Like if your head coach is real boisterous, a lot of times you have more of a player's coach as the assistants. And I think they tried doing that a little bit when they brought in Herring, the linebacker coach. Brought in Paul Pasquinelli. He's kind of a fiery kind of guy, and I think they're trying to do that. And Tucker's kind of like. He has that perception that he's a fiery guy, and he seems really emotional. And on the sideline, he's animated, and in a training camp, he seems pretty vocal. But he's not at that level of passion and excitement that you would want to be the counterbalance to Trestman. And again, like we talked about, it comes down to wins. If his defense is successful, the players will buy in even more. So they got to start stacking wins at some point, because 500 year after year is just not going to get it done in Chicago.
Yeah, and then part of me was really upset. And then I know it's something that's happened and you need to get over it, is I really wish Rod Marinelli would have stayed, because I think he could have been that player or a coach that the players absolutely loved like a father, but he wasn't afraid to take off his belt and whip somebody's behind if they're not playing right.
Yeah. I mean, that came down to him. He just wanted he didn't want to stay here without his guys, and it's a shame. I don't know if it was a money thing or what, but he took the demotion to go to Dallas for a year. He was just a D-line coach, and I think this year he's actually calling their plays. So, it worked out for him. He's in a place where he feels comfortable. The Cowboys are winning games. They're 5-1. I'm not sure how they're doing today, though. But they got to find a guy, and if Tucker's the guy, so be it. But I think the Bears are 8-8 again this year. I think he's going to be the fall guy.
So, looking forward to next week is what are we going to see with the Bears versus Tom Brady and the New England Patriots?
Oh, geez. I can't pick against the Pats, especially in New England. That offense is back. They're gonna have a little extra time to prepare for the Bears, and that's Bill Belichick again, is probably the best coach in the game these days. So I don't see any way the Bears can pull it off. With that being said, every time I've said that this year, the Bears come out and win the game. So, and vice versa. When I think the Bears got it in the bag, they blow it. So who knows what'll happen this week? Yeah,
I mean, you brought it up before. I think the tight ends is going to be covering the tight ends is going to be key. With any of the older quarterbacks, and not to take anything away from Tom Brady and saying he's old, but for a quarterback, he's old and he can still throw the ball and he can still pick you apart, but he moves about as well as a sack of potatoes. So if they can get the pressure on him and at least create a tight window for those passes to go to tight ends, I think that they can really stop that offense. I mean, they've had some spurts in the season where they've really struggled, and then they've had spurts where they've just lit up people. And their defense is suspect. I mean, they gave up a lot of points to the Jets, who really you shouldn't be giving up that many points to. So their defense is suspect, and if they can get pressure on Tom Brady and get that offense at least reasonably working, I think this could be a position where it comes to a shootout, and if it comes to a shootout, as much as you hate picking against Tom Brady, I think Willie Young comes through strong in this game.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the game a few weeks ago when the Patriots, when everyone was doubting them, they came out and then they played. They came out and they had their heart on their sleeve. Tom Brady was animate. The players were vocal. They were passionate. I don't want to try and sound too much like a meatball, but I really think the Bears got to come out next week. Got to come out with some passion. They have to come out with some sense of urgency. If this locker room blow up and the way they lost this to a team that they had no reason losing, they're 0-3 at home. They have to show their pride. Much like the Patriots came out a couple weeks ago and they really put on a show, and they think it was against the Bengals. They came out and just killed them. And everyone was saying Tom Brady was washed up. The Pats are done, and that's kind of how the Bears are going to get this week. The Bears are. They're looking pretty bad. People are really going to take them to task all week in the media, through social media. The same thing. The fans are already all over them, and they need to come out with the us against the world mentality. They need to come out on the road again. They have none of the home distractions there, so they can get away from Soldier Field, as weird as it sounds. And they have got to come out with some passion, with some hunger, with some anger, and got to put it to the Patriots. And if they don't, the season could be over.
Yeah, and the good news for the Bears is that the Patriots' offensive line this whole season has been like a carousel. They've had so many guys in and out, and if you have Willie Young playing like Willie Young, and you have Jay Ratliff playing like he did today, where he is a man possessed, Jay Ratliff can come through and really cause some havoc. And this isn't Ryan Tannehill. Is Tom Brady? If you cause pressure up the middle, he's going down.
Yeah, he's not mobile. I know a few years ago there was a famous juke move he put on Urlacher, but whatever speed he did have at one point, that's long gone. Plus he's got an ankle he's been nursing all month here with Tom Brady, so he's not scrambling. He's not looking to get out of the pocket. He's looking to take his quick drop, make his quick read, and get rid of the ball as quick as possible. And Bears got to get in the pass rush. They got to be smart with getting hands up. They got to get a push up the middle. Ratliff and Paya, they both now I think have 4 sacks. I think Ratliff's big game today. He had I think 3.5, so he's right there with Paya. They got to get a push. So they got to pressure Brady, and you pressure any quarterback that's not mobile. You're going to have an edge right there. So if they do that, who knows? They may pull out the win.
I think that's the ultimate chance that they have, is being able to get pressure right up the gut. And if Ratliff plays like he's been playing, and Paya plays like he's been playing, is I really see them pushing the pocket, and you're not gonna roll out Tom Brady too much, and Tom Brady's not any risk at all of running a read option play or running for the first down, other than hold on a second, let me stop and say a little prayer and hope everybody the turf monster comes up and bites everybody, and I can run for this. So if they can create pressure up the middle, I think it's going to be a long day for Tom Brady. As much as smart as Bill Belichick is, and as much as he can scheme, if a team's getting pressure up the middle, it's really hard to scheme against that.
Yeah, I'll tell you this though, much like Aaron Rodgers, if you blitz Brady, he'll kill you. Especially with those tight ends are playing good now, and so I would not be surprised to see Mel Tucker just put it on his front four and make them get after it and kind of have the business scaled back. Because if you're blitzing a lot, that's going to give the middle open for Gronkowski, and it'll give Brady a quick outlet. And I don't think the Bears want to have him running around, especially with their secondary. Back there is not the greatest of tacklers. They're more. Mundy's more of a hitter. He's not really a sound rap guy. And Conti may be back next week. And if he's back, how long will he be on the field if he's going to have to tackle Gronkowski? So, I think you're going to see Mel Tucker just kind of play a little more base stuff. He may do a little different stuff with his coverages as far as mix up cover 3, cover 2, maybe a little bit of man once in a while, but. If people are looking for Tucker to do something creative, I don't think this is the week for him to do it. I think he's going to play more vanilla stuff and rely on his front four to get through that beat-up Patriot offensive line and pressure Tom Brady.
Yeah, you're not going to – Tom Brady's too smart. Belichick's too smart. They prepared too well, and he's been around the block way too many times for you to trick him. And you're not going to confuse him. I mean, look at – if anybody was going to confuse him, it's going to be the Rex Ryan and the Jets. And they throw the kitchen sink at him every time they play him, and Tom Brady still usually comes up on top. You've got to be physical with that team and get to Tom Brady. You beat the Patriots by hitting Tom Brady early and hitting Tom Brady often.
Exactly.
And the big pressing question though is if Conti does come back next week and he has a head-on collision with Gronkowski, is which player is out for more games?
Yeah, that's true. Gronkowski doesn't have the best history either, but I don't. With Conti, at least the good thing this week he wasn't his concussion again. It was his shoulder, so at least he doesn't have that going against him. But he's got to figure something out. I mean, he is clearly the Bears' best free safety. You like to see him out there. You like to see him healthy because he seems like a really good kid. He's really. He took a lot in stride last year where he really got crapped on by a lot of the fans and the media alike. So, you kind of want to see him do good. So
I'm not going to lie.
I like seeing it out there. I
led the charge on crapping on him last year.
Oh, you know what? He knew it was coming. I mean, he didn't have the best of years. And then, of course, in the biggest game of the year, he blows it. And it wasn't only him, but he was the guy that was forefront that had the bad coverage on. So. Yeah, but clearly though, I mean, when he's out there, I mean, he's the best option of free safety. He just got to stay healthy, and if he can't do that, there's no point in him playing.
So, is there anything else you want to add about this game or next week?
Sounds good. I think we covered quite a bit. I'm expecting a Bears loss next week, but the way my predictions have gone this year, I don't think I've gotten, but I think 2 right all year. So, if I'm wrong, I'm good.
Yeah. Well. Thanks a lot, Lester, for being on the show. And everybody, make sure you check out Windy City Gridiron. That's windycitygridiron.com. And Lester always has some great articles up there. And there's a lot of fan comments and really thought-provoking stuff about the Chicago Bears. I read it all the time, so it's definitely something you should check out too. So thanks a lot, Lester.
Sounds good. No problem, Sean. Thanks so much.
I want to thank Lester for being on the show. We love having him. It's a blast to talk to him. He's a really knowledgeable guy, and he's always writing insightful things on windycitygridiron.com. So, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Again, make sure to check out our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs, at icehogs.com. And make sure to check out another episode on Tuesday where we'll talk about the other Chicago sports teams. We'll also be talking about the Rockford Ice Hogs. And check out the website at swerskisports.com, on Twitter at @swerskisports, facebook.com/swerskisports. And on our website, it's got all the ways you can contact us. If you have a question, feel free to email us and write in. And if you want to hear your voice on the air, you can call. We have a Google Voice hotline set up. So basically call that number and leave a message, and we'll play that on the air. Get your question on there, and either Lester or myself or Gary or any of the other hosts of the show we'll jump on and answer your question. You can hear yourself on the radio. And until next time, thanks for listening, and bear down.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van. And she looks like...
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down